Welcome and good afternoon to this event with Qlife Holding. With me today I have the CFO Kasper Rosø from Qlife. The topic of today's event is primarily focused on the recently announced Q4 report, and then Kasper will elaborate a little on the ongoing subscriber issue. Just some practical issues for the audience. As always, you are more than welcome to post your questions while Kasper presents the Q4 report, and you can do that on your on your right side of your screen. And I will try to post the questions to Kasper as soon as possible. So please have some patience. With that said, I would like to welcome Kasper. Welcome, Kasper.
Thank you very much, Claus, and also welcome to the viewers today. We will try to make this a quick and informative event. So what we're going to talk about is our interim Q4 report, but I'm also want to highlight to all of you that we have recently also published the full annual report that is much more informative. So if you want to educate yourself about our operations and what's going on in Qlife, it's available now. It has yet to be finally approved by the annual general meeting on the 4th of May, but it's there. And I'm also just opposing these two reports because there is one restatement in our annual report relative to the figures that was released in our Q4 report, and I will get into that as we go through the highlights from the report. So let's move on to the income statement. Here we see the highlights from our income statement in the Q4 report. And first, I want to point your attention to our revenue that is actually half of what it was in Q3. And that is the SARS-CoV tests that is continuing on the expected decline. Actually, we had budgeted with no revenue, so the 1 million that we saw is a positive surprise. But going forward, there will be even less as testing requirement has disappeared. So you see then operating expense of 27 million Swedish kroner, which is actually up by more than 10 million quarter to quarter, and takes us to a total operating expense for the year of 95.7 million Swedish kroner. That is, when we look into the details, actually we are continuing the downwards trend or the same level as Q3 following our restructuring. And even further restructuring, but have an offset, and that is the restatement I talked about before, which is a write-down of reagents for our SARS-CoV-2 tests. That write-down was made as a consequence of an arbitration case that we have entered into with our former distributor agent, and I will move into that as well. But if you take that out, then the underlying OPEX is still being reduced. EBITDA for Q4 was negative 25.9 million and a full year EBITDA of negative 77.7 million, which gives us a net result for Q4 of 37.0 almost million, and for the full year of 93.1 million. Then we had some exchange rate gains over the year, so the total comprehensive loss is smaller. It's 31.4 for Q4 and negative 84.56 for the full year. There is also a small specification here of our revenue that is where you can see that the majority of our revenue now is from Sweden, where we have had our best reseller in COVID tests. and with tiny revenue streams from Finland and other countries also. If we move on to the balance sheet, then you will see the intangible fixed assets are increasing, and that is based on our continued efforts in the R&D department that has been capitalized. And we have impairment tested our balance there as part of the annual report with our auditors, and have maintained everything there still. So that is a good sign for all of you. Our tangible fixed assets is at 55.3 million in Q3 and 54.9 at year end. And here then you see when we move down to the inventory, then you see the effect of the inventory write down. So we actually end up with a year-end inventory that is slightly lower than our opening balance for the full year of 8 million Swedish kronor. And then when you look at the equity, we closed the year with an equity of 91.1 million, which is impacted by the rights issue that was performed in November. And the total balance sum is 192.65 million at year end. Cash flow wise, then the cash flow from operations in Q4 was negative 11.6 million. We had a negative impact from changes in working capital by 8 million, again heavily impacted by the write down. Then our cash flow from investment activities was negative 7.5 million. That's the activation of R&D expenditure. And then we had a positive cash flow from financing of 18.7 million for the quarter and 32.7 for the year. Total cash flow for Q4 was positive 3.2 million and negative 57.9 million for the full year. And cash at the end of the period was 14.547 million. Then I would like to move on after this to the significant events during the Q4 and what has happened afterwards also. So first in Q4, as mentioned when we talked about Q3 also, we were busy adjusting the company to a post-COVID-19 reality, meaning that we could not bank on future revenues from our COVID tests. So we have been doing workforce reductions and restructuring of the company, while we at the same time was focusing on and pushing hard to complete our next product in the roadmap, which is the CRP test that required both new technology in the filtration device, EcoCollect, that we have been talking about earlier also, but also updates to our device in order to, based on both feedback from the market early on, and since the internal operations were as a little more complex for the CRP test, these updates also needs to be included in the device. And all there has now been completed, and we are happy that we now have a fully functioning system and have started shipping the first ones to customers also. Then we also performed the rights issue in Q4 with proceeds of 31.1 million Swedish kronor, and we paid back bridge financings of 21 million Swedish kronor, which is why the cash flow was at sort of a modest positive compared to actually the amount that came in. And that also means sort of when we look at Q4, after Q4, what has happened, then we first of all announced that we completed the freeze drying project. That was a super important component for us in order to have a fully functioning product for home use, since our SARS-CoV assays required to be stored in freezers. It would be impossible to distribute that to home users. Now, when we have freeze-dried our reagents for the CRP, they can be distributed at room temperature and at room temperature, but could also be stored at room temperature, and that simplifies the logistics significantly, but has not been an easy thing to actually get done. First of all, we announced that we could do the freeze drying, but then getting the production up and running actually was challenging because that requires a specific environment that has control of the humidity, and we had that with our a supplier that provides that, but then getting our manufacturing operation up and running with them has been one of the things that we've been working on, and that is there now. Then we also, after completing that, and we were actually ready to launch the Eco CRP assay, which was done, and it can now be purchased from our web page. We are not aggressively marketing this yet because we want to make sure that we provide good support to the customers that start operating the system in order to ensure that they have successful experiences with the product, and we can collect feedback from them at the same time. Then we have planned a second rights issue that is actually still running as of today. It will be completed on the 25th of April. The amount that we are raising this time is 57.7 million. It is 100% backed by guarantors, but there are still unit rights. That is what we are issuing up for grabs, both for our investors. Today is the last date when the unit rights are being traded actually, and they are right now at a discount relative to the share price. The share price today is 30 Swedish öre per share, at least when I checked earlier today. And the unit rights that will give you a right to subscribe for one share and a warrant to subscribe for an additional share in September at the prices of 10 öre for the share and 11 öre for the share under the warrant. So basically, by buying unit rights today, there will be a discount of 9 Swedish öre relative to the share price of 30 öre today, and then you will have two shares in September instead. So there's an arbitration opportunity today that I would like to point you to if you are interested. Then also a final thing that also relates to the write-down with it is that our former distributor, Adyen, initiated arbitration proceedings with us. We have been discussing how to handle the situation following their distribution agreement where they didn't meet the minimum purchase commitment, and have unfortunately failed to find a solution or compromise together. So now there's an arbitration case, and the details of that is that Adyen is claiming payment from invoices of 0.8 million euros, and we on the other hand is saying yes, we will be happy to pay for these invoices, but only when you also then pay for the unmet minimum purchase commitment that amounts to 2.2 million euros. And the case has been accepted as a joint case for both claims, and we will now just have to wait and see what the outcome is. But we see that as a positive, since the initial claim from Adyen was that the invoices should be looked at outside of the distribution agreement that had the minimum purchase commitment. So that was the sort of fast walkthrough of the results in Q4 and what we are working on today.
Good.
So are there any questions, Claus?
Yeah, well, not anyone coming in yet from the audience, but just to remind the audience, you're more than welcome to post some questions. But of course, I have some questions, and it's fair to say, Kasper, that especially the second part of 2022 have been quite busy. You've been stepping on the brakes, and at the same time transforming the company into a more sustainable company in the terms of your new approach for the healthy segment, or home testing with all you experience from the COVID SARS. So just very briefly here, Thomas. Sorry, Kasper. Sorry, Kasper. You mentioned before your first assay is ready. It's ready in a freeze-dried version, so it adapts to the environment that you are targeting now, home testing. Mm-hmm. The unit behind you on the wallpaper, the hardware unit, is also
right
ready.
Here.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, and you're out looking for capital. Could you elaborate a little on the share issue and the proceeds from the share issue? Is that going to speed up the process of the CRP, or are you going to use the money for other purposes?
Very good question, and thank you for that. It is to speed up the process as much as we can. We also, and at the same time, to look for partners that can help us be more effective in bringing the CRP to market faster. So yeah, you can say in that sense it will be speeding up the process. We realized while we during COVID had to do everything ourselves, we can see now that it is much faster to work with partners. So both in terms of for the manufacturing setup and the production setup, where we will be outsourcing as much as we can rather than building up our own capabilities. Because we first of all we can see that it's the faster way to achieve economies of scale, and at the same time it's less risky compared to making heavy investments in equipment ourselves. And at the same time we're also looking then for partners in different markets that can help us evolve the markets faster. So that's what we're using the money for.
And what could you be a little more specific? I think last time you were online here, you mentioned some key markets. Have that changed since last time? The key markets were very much Europe.
It has changed a little, I would say. So in the sense that we mentioned before UK, Denmark, and Sweden as the key markets. We are now, based on our early feedbacks and the work we've done so far, seeing that UK looks very promising. Denmark is going to take longer time to develop. On the other hand, we've got some contacts in Ireland. So Ireland will also be one of the early markets that we're looking into. Sweden also is proving more difficult, even though we had much revenue under SARS-CoV. Then making the breakthrough in Sweden is not as easy as first anticipated. But so Denmark and Sweden was picked because those were our sort of home markets. But we have learned that we need to look into the purchasing behavior when it comes to health tech in the different markets. And Denmark and Sweden, the tendency to spend, for people to spend out of their own pockets is not as great as it is in UK and Ireland. And hence it's faster to get started there. We are still working on the other ones, but we don't expect early results there. It will take longer time in order to get a more formal setup where there are public money that can help people purchase the products in Sweden and Denmark.
And you also, as I remember it last time, mentioned some restrictions in terms of a non-CE marking of the unit. Is there any news there?
So the unit is still CE marked, but we would like to get approval for the CRP as both for professional and for home use, and that is going to take time and investment, and the places where this applies is going to be for the applications that also require longer time to develop the market. So hence we are doing the launch now is for what we call research use only, and wellness, where we don't need the IVDR approval, and then we are looking into getting the regulatory approvals also along the way. But we also realize that in order to do the proper regulatory approval, we need to find the right intended use, and we could have done one based on just our guess of where this can be used, but think that it's a more diligent and more smarter way to look at the money that we actually got to do the find partners that works with the RUO product that we have now, and agree on a validated intended use, and then we do a filings for that intended use afterwards, rather than investing heavily in the regulatory approval for an intended use that we haven't a proven commercial case for yet.
That makes sense, of course.
And of course, still, so the home use is still relevant, but we still need to talk to the people that actually that we can get to use the product now and see how do they want to use it, and to validate that our assumptions here on this product is something that can help people monitor autoimmune diseases is actually what it will be used for. Because the wonderful thing and also very difficult thing is there are so many meaningful applications of this product, and we need to be very, very cautious by picking the right one first, given our financing situation, of course. So we need to look for the ones that brings in cash sooner rather than later.
That's fully understandable, but you do have plans with the proceeds you get from the rights issue to launch an additional assay in 2023, yeah?
Not in 23.
Okay.
We are pushing on with the fee assay a little still, but that is with we are not using proceeds for that, because one of the things we've identified a partner. I don't know when we can actually formally announce who that is, but that actually is helping us develop assays in a much more for us much more cost efficient way, since they are funding a large part of the early assay development.
Good, that's nice. And you mentioned a lot about the way you want to build the company, Kasper. How, of course, you're working probably day and night to find some relevant partners. When should we expect something? Is there something very close by, or is it a second half of 2023?
I would, of course, as we are in negotiations with people here, I don't want us to put ourselves in a position where we don't have the best bargaining point. So by announcing something here, then that might interrupt ongoing negotiations. So I cannot say that, Claus.
Okay, that's fair enough. Then another question about your upcoming general meeting, because as I read it, you do some quite major changes in the boardroom. Could you elaborate a little on that? Of course, everybody have to vote for the new board, but what is going on?
Yes, of course. I can say that there are a group of the people that we had on the board now that given the new reality that we are operating in now, where we are not, we are moving on, and I'm more back to being an R&D company and have to build up revenue in a new market, feel that their experience might not be and profiles might not be the right ones to take us on to the next step. So the nomination committee has found new candidates that are up for election at the general meeting, and I hope that the outcome there will be that we sit with a new and stronger board that can take us on the next part of our journey.
Good. Thanks a lot, Kasper.
And the candidates, I mean, can be seen in the materials on our website. So there is something to read on there also. Yes.
Good. There's no questions coming in here, but please, if you have any questions, let us know. Doesn't really seem to be the case right now, and we are more or less within the timing, Kasper. So,
then I would just, if I can have one final comment, just
of course,
highlight to the people that are listening in that the rights issue is still running. It's even though the unit rights are stopped trading today, it's still possible to request unallocated units following until the 25th actually. So if you found interest here, then look at it. I think this is a good opportunity to step in as an investor on a sort of a more clean plan, since we are now out of the COVID business and have sort of the original intended ambition for the company to invest in without a distorted valuation from COVID. So I would encourage everybody to have a look at that.
There's a question coming in here on more or less in the end, Kasper. There's a question here about your restructuring program, the workforce reduction. When will we see some financial metrics from that in 2023? And the second one is, when will you be profitable cash flow wise?
First, sort of the full effect of our restructuring will will be in our numbers. You will see something already in next quarter quarterly earnings, but the full effect will be there in Q3, and that is just due to the length of employment contracts in Denmark, and also the fact that we have been spending to finalize the CRP product. We are beyond that now, so our burn rate will be significantly different following that. When we will be profitable, that will be something that I can't elaborate here on now.
Fair enough. Then there's a very good question here about the general practitioners, and this is more related to the whole approach you have now with home testing. Mm-hmm. Do they have to do their own validation of the Qlife test results, or how does this work, Kasper? So you do your CRP test, and then what?
So that depends on the state of the product, I would say, right? So right now, it can be trusted to operate under a protocol. So if somebody decides they want to use this for a specific application and run a program under a protocol, then it can be trusted. Mm-hmm. Once we have the IVDR approval in Europe, then it can be trusted without doing any further tests also. But of course, if an individual buys it today, they will get a CRP measurement, but the physician cannot trust it yet, or to because there is no IVDR and that is the approval. Unless it's under a protocol program, it has been created.
Okay, so when you get the IVDR approval and you measure your CRP level is maybe high, then the physician can take it from there and either ordinate some medicine or some other stuff, or take a visit, pay your visit, and do some further examination.
But let me say this is actually no different from anything else. Typically, a physician will always do their own measurements, and even if you have measurements made by one doctor in one country and you move to another country and bring the results, they will still run their own tests, right? So I think, I'm not sure that you will ever get to a situation unless sort of it would be good to get to that situation where they actually trust the data directly, right? But that would require a lot of education on the product before that will happen. But I mean, it will happen because I mean the product is designed to create lab quality test results. So they are equally good as what can be done at a clinical chemistry laboratory.
Yeah,
but it will take some time to build up the reputation, of course.
Of course, and you just started, of course. But home testing should save the public sector both time and money.
Yes, and I think what is more important when we talk about home testing is also not necessarily just doing the test that tells you need to go to the doctor. It's also monitoring the low levels of inflammation that enables you to actually know that if you are at risk of or have an autoimmune deficiency that is a risk of evolving into something that requires medication or more medications, then it gives you the comfort of understanding that it's actually under control with what you're doing today.
Yeah, that's right. Then there's actually a final question from the same person asking the two other questions here about the competitors, and we already know a couple of US competitors. Henrik here, he mentioned a company called Omron from Japan. Have you met them in the market so far?
No, we have not. I mean, but it's actually interesting that the competition is brought up, because the competition that we have been looking at, which is Q Health in the US, and is probably the most direct competitor. They are, and we can see actually that when we look at what they are doing, they have been caught in the same situation as we had last year, with heavy investments in building up testing capabilities to support SARS-CoV-19 testing, and now that is gone. And I mean, now we are actually happy that we didn't get further, because we can see the impact on their operations and what they have had to build up, and now as they are struggling even more than we have been in order to get back into something that is a viable setup for tomorrow where there's no COVID testing.
Thanks a lot, Kasper. So with that said, thanks a lot for a great presentation, Kasper.
Thank you.
And we actually look forward for your next event, and probably that will be after the share issue is finished. I would like to thank the audience for listening to this event, and also for the questions. So by that said, I would like to close the event, and hopefully you all have a very nice day.